going to be advocating anyone or anything, and I suppose that's not entirely true. Tonight, I and the Fresno Future Project must honor the spirit of Fresno, Jake's home. And we will, in the coming months and years, continue to work to revive it, to grow it, to advance it, not just by talking about it and reminiscing about what it was in 1885 or before, but by living it anew every day. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Fresno Future Project's 2012 honorary speaker and ambassador, Jake Soberal.
So I have to start by thanking Suzanne Bertorosa and Andrew Tosky. They are the ones who brought that video to life, and their talents are self-evident, but what is equally deserving of recognition is their commitment to this community. And so I thank them for that video. I had the opportunity to give a talk like the one I'm going to give tonight just once before. It was at my high school graduation. There I gave the graduation speech, and I spoke about things that I hoped would happen then and things that I still hope will happen today. But I remember, even as I was giving that speech, thinking, you know, these folks, they ought to enjoy this because they're not going to see me here again. And at 18 years old, I truly believed that there simply wasn't an opportunity big enough for me in this place. And so I left. I started by going to New York City, where I believed that I would surely find a future at the center of the universe. I was wrong. Shortly thereafter, I transferred to the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And if I was looking for the polar opposite of Manhattan, I'd surely found it. But 3 years later, and having graduated from Carolina, I still hadn't found my place. And at this point, I'm not sure quite where I want to be or where I'm meant to be. But around this time, my then girlfriend and now wife, Sarah, is quite certain that she's ready to move back to California. And so I quickly became sure of just one thing, and that's that she wasn't going to go back to California alone. And so we set our sights for Los Angeles, hoping that it would somehow be a happy medium between the metropolis of New York City that wasn't a fit and what we remembered about Fresno. And with all due respect to the city to our south, we were the most wrong on that drive. And so the summer after my first year in law school, I cherry-picked an opportunity here in Fresno, an excellent opportunity, make no mistake, to be a judicial extern at the Court of Appeal here in Fresno. I applied knowing that my peers, many of them wouldn't apply just because it was in Fresno. But I did, and I got the job. I came back for the summer believing that I would leave with a gold star on my resume and a short visit to my hometown. What I didn't expect to find is that for the first time in my adult life, I was surrounded by people with the values and priorities that I aspired to. I was surrounded by people of the sort that I wanted to be when I grew up. And so not long into that summer, I remember calling my Sarah and saying, you know, I think I want to move back to Fresno. And without missing a beat, Sarah said, I think you're out of your mind. As Dr. Kharbawy mentioned far too kindly, my name is Jake Soberal. I'm an attorney at Walter & Wilhelm, where I practice intellectual property and business litigation. I'm also a member of the board of directors at Creative Fresno, and really just delighted tonight to have the opportunity to talk about an organization that doesn't get enough credit. You see, Creative Fresno is an organization that has dedicated itself to making Fresno a place where people want to be. And my favorite thing about Creative Fresno is that it's an organization made up of doers. When a new initiative or idea is presented at Creative Fresno, as soon as the presentation is finished, it's as though the entire room all at once responds, but yeah, so what are you going to do about it? And you see, what the result is you have an organization that is not comprised of ideas, it's comprised of 13 unique initiatives that are getting done and are making Fresno better. And I would encourage all of you to visit a little bit on creativefresno.com and learn more about what that organization is doing. I'm very proud of it. Of course, tonight we're here to talk about just one of those initiatives, and that's the Boomerang Project. I think we need to start with, well, what is the Boomerang Project setting out to do? And that's very simple, but also lofty. And we've set out to reverse brain drain in Fresno. And simply put, brain drain is the problem of losing too many smart people. And it's a problem we have here. The statistics really make it profound. In the most recent census period, 1 in every 6 young, single college graduates left Fresno. 52% of young professionals with a bachelor's degree in Fresno, they plan to leave within the next 5 years. 19.7% of adults in Fresno hold a bachelor's degree as compared with 30.1% statewide. And of the adults leaving the San Joaquin Valley, 24% hold their degrees, whereas of the adults coming back, only 14% bring with them degrees. Most troubling to me, though, is that a few years ago, the Los Angeles Times came to Fresno to do a story on, of all things, brain drain. And they went into a Bullard High School sophomore English class, and they polled the students there on their feelings about their hometown. And 24 of the 25 students in that class responded that they planned to leave Fresno as soon as possible. Wanting to believe that this was still true, I taught Entrepreneurship 81 at Fresno State in the Lyle Center this week, and it's made up of about 100 students. It's a required course for the entrepreneurship majors and an elective for others. And so I started the class, I said, how many of you will be successful? Without missing a beat, 100 of 100 misled hands went up. My next question, though, was how many of you believe that you can have the success you just raised your hand for in Fresno? 5 hands. I said, how many of you are going to try to have the success you just raised your hand for in Fresno? 3 hands. But standing in contrast to that data is a curious piece of data, and that is that Fresno has a very large number of available high-level jobs that sit vacant for an extended period of time. The Brookings Institute released a study this year about last year wherein they said that there were 65,000 jobs advertised requiring a bachelor's degree or higher in the San Joaquin Valley in 2011. And of the unemployed workforce searching for a job in the San Joaquin Valley in that same period, only 13,000 held their degrees. And in 2011, the Washington Post came to Fresno to do a story on the state of economics here in our city, and they left with a story entitled, "Why Does Fresno Have Thousands of Job Openings and Yet High Unemployment?" We've got this sort of catch-22 problem. There is all sorts of highly skilled, highly demanding jobs available, but yet the workforce that's available to fill them lacks the skill set necessary, the education necessary to fill those jobs. And now the impact of this problem is really, really profound. And I think it could be broken down into twofold. The first is callously economic. Let me emphasize, callously economic. We put far too much of our money into our children. We pour money into their education. We pour money into their extracurricular activities. We make sure that they are safe, that they are healthy, that they grow up well. But yet the child, who is like a sponge and soaks these things up, they are most positively impacted by all of these efforts. That's the same child that is overwhelmingly likely to graduate high school, merge onto the 99, and never look back. And so this community never gets a return on its investment. And it's not just economic. It's certainly emotional as well, because that individual, that person who just merged onto the 99 and broke off their rearview mirror, that's not a stranger. That's our son. That's our daughter. And they just left believing that there was not a future for them in Fresno. I created Fresno for the reasons that I opened with. We believed that we could do something about it. And so we launched the Boomerang strategy. It's very important at this stage to note that the Boomerang strategy was developed over a period of years by a number of very intelligent people, a group of which I'm not a part. But it's very simple. First, you've got to start with, well, what's a boomerang? Well, a boomerang is a person who returns to the place where they're from. And why is this boomerang so important? Well, oftentimes they're smart or talented. They've gone off and they've got an education or experience that maybe aren't available here. And so they bring back value. They care about this place. They're not going to something that is other. They're coming back to something that they are a part of that produced them. And oftentimes they're what we like to call sticky. That is that when they come back, they're not surprised by the heat. They're not surprised by the fact that we have farms and cows. You know, this place is familiar to them. It's home. It's where mom is. It's where dad is. It's where their fondest memories are. And so they're quite likely to stay. Now, it's here where we should make clear that a boomerang is no more important than any other sort of person. In fact, my friend, Dr. Stearns at the Lyles Center, breaks our population into 3 groups for migrational purposes. First, you have your legacies. These are the people who are born, live, and often die in the very same place. These are the stewards of our history. They're our standard bearers. And standing at the other end of the spectrum, you have pioneers. These are people who come to this place without having any history at all. They bring with them new ideas and angst for what they experienced elsewhere that may have been different or better. But somehow standing here in the middle of these two is this hybrid of sorts, this boomerang. And the boomerang brings with them an appreciation for what we are, a love for what we are, but also an angst for what they experienced elsewhere. They bring back with them other, combining it with us. And you need to have a balance in order to have a healthy community. And so we developed a process. It's really very simple. We use available high-level jobs to recruit back boomerangs. Very importantly, understanding that the boomerang is not coming back for the Boomerang Project. They're not coming back for me or the job even. They're coming back for mom, for dad, for a quality of life that they remember, to get out of the rat race. And they're coming back now because of the job. And so what we've done over about the last year is we've worked with local employers, some of the largest local employers in Fresno, to build a pool of available jobs. We asked them very simply, when you have a high-level job become available, share it with us. Let us know, and if we have a match, we'd love to plug them in and introduce you to them. Next, we had to reach the boomerang. And so, having no money, we looked inward instead of looking outward. We went to every single community organization that would listen, and we said, you know that person who calls you on Sunday night and they're telling you that they wish they could afford a house in LA? You know that person who's whining because they don't have a babysitter in Manhattan? The person who's talking about how he misses all his buddies, how he misses home and the outdoors? We've got a job for them. And we want you to connect us to them such that we can recruit them back to Fresno. And so we asked that they refer, and we made it very easy for them to do so. And the next thing that we did has been more recent, and that is that we went directly at the boomerang. And so if you find yourself flying into Fresno International Airport this holiday season, and you land in our shiny new concourse, and you're heading down the escalator to the new concourse, to the older concourse, right up there on your left, you'll see a 20-foot by 10-foot banner. And that banner says on it, we have career-advancing jobs waiting for you here in Fresno. Because at that moment, where they are most positively thinking about Fresno, where their attention is turned back to a warm Thanksgiving dinner and their best memories, we want to remind them that the reason they're staying away, the future they didn't believe they had here, they do, and it's waiting for them. And so we're very excited about that. Now, once we get the boomerang and we have a match as a job, we connect the two. And what that looks like is not just an employer vetting a candidate, but a city getting on the other end of the line saying, hey, Boomerang, we need you back. And so it's really simple. We've got a job and we've got a person. And once we've been able to do that, we think that we can have some success. But importantly with the Boomerang Project, we set out to do 2 very distinct things and nothing more. First, we wanted proof of concept. We wanted to prove that we could find spectacular people who are from Fresno and attract them to return to Fresno. Believing that on a micro level, these folks would be wealth centers. They would be job creators. They would be impactful people in this place. Well, then what we wanted to do is when we had that success, when we had attracted back that boomerang, we wanted to turn it into a public relations success. We wanted to hold that person up squarely in front of the Bullard High School sophomore English class and say, if this person could do what they do anywhere, but they chose to do it here, maybe you can too. And so I'm excited to share that moment with you here tonight. Mike Dozier, who's sitting in the audience tonight and works at the Office of Community and Economic Development, called me about 4 months ago and he said, Jake, I think you need to meet Liz Perez. And I said, well, I'd love to meet Liz Perez. Why is that? And he said, I think you ought to recruit her to come back through the Boomerang Project. So he connected us. And I learned that Liz is a Central High School graduate, a member of the Mono Indian tribe. I learned that Liz, after graduating high school, went off and joined the United States Navy and served in the Middle East. And I learned that after that, she came back and graduated from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And then she set up shop in San Diego. And in 2010, she launched a renewable energy company called GC Green. And since that time, she's had some success in San Diego. Now, you see, when I was connected with Liz, I was connected believing I was meeting an individual who I could recruit back, who we could recruit back through the Boomerang Project. What I didn't know is that Liz was calling not just about Liz, but also about GC Green. And so I'm very pleased to announce that through the Boomerang Project, today, GC Green is located on the Fulton Mall. And Liz Perez and her husband are in the process of purchasing a house in the Lowell neighborhood. And GC Green is in the process of finalizing contracts that in the first quarter of 2013 will create 20 new jobs in Fresno. And Liz Perez is here tonight and deserves all of your And so that is what success looks like with the Boomerang Project. But in the time that I have left, I want to touch on something that I don't think gets nearly enough attention. And it is a fundamental premise of the Boomerang Project, and it's also a fundamental premise of this conference. And that is that Fresno is a place worth being today. Oftentimes when people talk about Fresno, their focus is on the negative. They lead with an excuse. But I think that's all wrong. Because what it does is it carries with it the suggestion that there's nothing here worthwhile, that we're not a meaningful city. But Fresno is the most important city inside of the world's richest agricultural region, which means that in 2012, Fresno is not just a meaningful city, she is an essential city from a global perspective. And because of my chosen profession, I brought some evidence. I'd invite you on a crisp autumn night, not different from this one, to the corner of Barstow and Cedar. You'd be at Bulldog Stadium with 40,000 of your closest friends wearing red and white. And what you would be watching is fantastic Division I football, and you would be seeing a city literally wrapped around her university. I would invite you to Iron Bird Cafe at the corner of Fulton and Divisadero downtown. And I would invite you to look north up Fulton, where you'd see turn-of-the-century homes once downtrodden reborn. You would see it spreading like wildfire down the street, or look across the street at Fulton 55, where you'd see the hottest new music venue between Los Angeles and San Francisco. At Ironbird, you're sitting outside of a cafe that could be dropped in the middle of Paris and wouldn't be a stranger, besides office spaces that are innovative and below modern lofts. Heading south on Fulton, you'd see these modern lofts springing up on either side of the street before you got to one of the most historic theaters, not just in Fresno, but in the United States and the world. And soon enough, you'd pour out onto the Fulton Mall, where quite literally a downtown is being reborn. Or come with me to Swedefest, where Rocky and Brian of Dum Drum, a couple of knuckleheads who took the movie Be Kind, Rewind way, way too seriously. And if you haven't seen that one, it's the one where Jack Black and Mos Def, they work at a movie store and they erase all of the videos on accident, and so they have to re-record them using only the props in their garage and a camcorder. And so Rocky and Brian, they said, God, that's cool. And they said, what if we dared filmmakers, amateur and professional alike, to make those sorts of films? And what if we got together and watched them? And so was born a film festival, Swedefest, a film festival born in Fresno, where really, if you met them, they are knuckleheads. They created an art in Fresno. And now it's an international sensation. You have cities from all over the world calling Fresno, asking for its culture. Or how about 59 Days of Code, where Irma Holguin and CVBI got together and they said, not that we could have a cool event, but that we could create a software industry in Fresno where there wasn't one. And so each year they dare software developers to come out of the woodworks and take a software application from zero to market-ready product in 59 days. And each year they don't just name winners, they launch businesses. And I invite you to the opportunity of Fresno. You see, our lifetimes will likely be defined by how water technology confronts issues facing our planet. And what doesn't get enough attention is that Fresno is the global center for water technology. Which means that in our lifetimes, it's very likely that someone will win a Nobel Prize in the area of water technology, and it is abundantly likely that that someone will be a Fresno. And I want to, lastly, for purposes of opportunity, reach out to that uber-ambitious, smart person, that young person who believes that they can save the world. You see, the world and our country likes to spend a lot of time focusing on the challenges that it has, and Fresno has just about every one of those challenges. So for that person that left believing they could save the world, I want to remind them that the future of the American city will be decided in Fresno. We have opportunity to spare, folks. And so, on that call a few years ago, where I was explaining in far too lawyerly a way to Sarah the reasons why we should come back, and they were good reasons. None was more compelling then, and none is more compelling today, than the fact that Fresno is home. And so in anticipation of this night, of this talk, I wanted to force myself to determine, well, what does that mean? We talk about home and it's kind of a fuzzy term, but what does it really mean? And to me, I found home freshman year of high school, where two people produced by this place, two people of this place, fell in love with me and I with them. And one is my wife, Sarah Soberal, and the other is my best friend, Gabe Poduska, and they're both here tonight. You see, and those are mine. But that's important to all of you. Because Fresno, for all of her faults, has a way of creating an extraordinary quality of person. And the Boomerang Project, it exists to remind Fresno's sons and daughters that they're not only wanted in this place, but they're desperately needed to secure the future of this city. I really do believe that we're at a historic collision of positive events in Fresno. But the success or failure of those events, of those initiatives, will depend upon the ability of us to mobilize our human capital towards their ultimate success. It is my hope that this project and this event tonight can be a call to action. I want for each of you to change your attitudes. When someone asks you about your hometown, don't lead with an excuse. Don't lead with something negative because you're afraid of what the world might think. Lead with an attribute. And if you need some, stop by. I've got some to share. And I think in doing that, we might just change the way Fresno thinks about Fresno. And in turn, I think that we could change the way the world thinks about Fresno. And the second call to action is all about you. You see, that quality of person that I just finished describing, it's each of you.
And our future will depend upon your ability to roll up your sleeves with blinders to what the world says about your hometown and commit your talent, your time, and your treasures to its future. I think that if we do just those two things, in our lifetimes, we would see Fresno not become San Francisco, not become New York, Los Angeles, or Los Angeles. No, you would see Fresno finally become Fresno. Thank you.